Hey everybody, JJ here. Welcome back for another Wednesday of Zoom networking. Today we have none other than my really good friend Matt Merenoff as our guest speaker today. If you're not familiar with Matt, he is an unbelievable expert with short sales. He is the number one short sale guy in the country. Wealth of knowledge, husband, father, businessman, entrepreneur, great sense of humor, huge heart, just a great guy. Matt, how you doing today, brother?
Super fantastic. How about you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Hey, really quick, can you give folks a short synopsis about what you'll be speaking about today?
Probably not, but I'll give it a shot. So I'll be talking about my book, why I wrote my book. I'll be talking about short sales then and now. And then we'll be talking about the moratorium, what's changed and, what's going to happen, what's going to happen going next.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on right now. So, hey, with no further ado, brother, take it away.
JJ, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. A lot of familiar faces, some new faces on here. I can't believe that there's like 1,500 people that showed up for this event. I'm only kidding. It's important that the people that are here understand that the services that I provide, it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about the person who's in trouble. So we try to offer top-notch services, and we're not able to help everybody. So when someone says, they're in trouble, then we try to help. What about me? I've been doing short sales for 17 years. I started 2005. 2015, I took my company nationwide to help other people in other states across the United States because it seemed like everybody was like forgetting about short sales or they didn't think there was enough money in it. So I actually built a nice corporate book of business off of offering services to real estate agents, investors, attorneys, title companies, homeowners, really anybody that, investors that really wanted to be able to make a difference in people that are in trouble with their houses. So one of the reasons why I wrote my book that I wrote 3 years ago, I was on stage at my own event. And I realized I always wanted to write a book, but I knew it was important to write something that people were going to want to read about. So you see over my right-hand shoulder, this is a book that dropped on Amazon about 30 days ago. And the reason why I wrote the book was because it seemed like everybody kept asking me the same questions over and over and over again. And I felt like, you know what? That's the book. So everything that's in this book is really a solid footing foundation ready for the framework to understand how short sales work. So if you have any questions about short sales in general, basic question, basic knowledge, understanding how to speak to sellers, understanding how to speak to, or talk to other real estate agents, and or investors that want to speak to homeowners that are in distress, find out a little bit more about behind the scenes stories of, short sales. This would be the book for you to get. There are other books that are out there that talk about short sales, but if you go online now, I think there's about 25 maybe reviews on the book. And everybody, thank God, they're giving me all, 5-star reviews, which I appreciate. I'm looking for people that are going to say, hey, my book sucks. Why didn't you add this? Why don't you talk about this? What was the importance of? So don't panic. There is a second book that's going to be coming out that's going to get even more detailed as far as, what short sales are and how, they're going to progress and how things are really going to change over the next 2-3 years. So I'm thinking from today, probably 2 years, I'm going to end up dropping my next book because we will be in the thick of what's going to happen with the, the next wave or the next stages as far as short sales are concerned. The moratorium. I'm getting some really wacky phone calls from people saying, hey, I don't understand. How is it that the bank could foreclose on me? We have this, isn't there a moratorium in place? I can't get rid of my tenant, but it really doesn't matter because, I stopped paying my mortgage 7 years ago and they weren't paying, so I wasn't collecting all that additional money. Like the things that people are calling and saying to me just blow my mind. Like, I think all reasoning goes out the window after 6 or 7 months where the homeowners really don't understand what they need to do and why. They bury their head in the sand And unfortunately, a lot of them never come out of it. Some people are offered streamlined modifications where they don't go against the financials, and some people don't. I just heard of a person who's actually qualifying, hold on your seats, for his sixth loan modification, and he hasn't paid his mortgage in a total of 17 years. So, the stuff that people are bringing to me and asking if they can help. Somebody brought me a property, said they got to list it as soon as possible. They have a sale date, I think May 12th or whatever it is. And what it is it's the writ of execution, meaning they foreclosed on this property in 2019. They're kicking these people out, May 12th or whatever it is, out of the property. So I don't think people are reading the notices, the paperwork to get to their house, which is totally normal. They're not contacting attorneys to ask them for advice or even get a free consultation, which blows my mind. And here's something that I really found really odd. People are not even adjourning the sales to their houses. Some people are actually just letting the houses go to sale because they don't know any better. In the state that we live in now, the state that I live in New Jersey, we have the right of redemption, for 10 days. Some people are actually giving up equity in their houses, which blow my mind. We just finished up on a property in the Hamptons, and his attorney and the bank worked out an agreement where he could essentially give the property back to the bank, and they were willing to give him $100,000, $100,000. Well, guess what, guys? It wasn't a short sale. The bank was basically trying to take $900,000 in equity away from the guy, not knowing really what his house was worth. So we were able to help switch gears, help him get out of the situation that he was in, and sell the property as a regular sale, not going through a foreclosure sale, and or also giving the property back to the bank, which blew my mind that he didn't know. He walked away with a little over $500,000 in cash in his pocket from the sale of the house versus no money and or $100,000 because his attorney didn't really do the due diligence to find out that the house was actually worth more than the actual judgment amount that was on the property. So when someone says to me they're behind in the mortgage, first thing that comes to me is, well, do we know if there's any equity in the house? And people are always like, what are you talking about? Dude, it's a short sale. There's no equity in the house. Well, how do you know there's no equity in the house? Have you pulled title? Have you actually had that uncomfortable conversation with the homeowner to find out, do they actually owe more than the house is worth? So there's a lot of things that are out there that people really don't understand, which is really frightening. And that was another reason why I wrote the book. Now, am I promoting my book? 1,000,000%, 100%. Because it took me literally 3 years to write it because of writer's block and the nonsense that I had to go through with fielding calls from people that didn't understand what their rights were, even over the pandemic. So people are calling now, and how many people are on here right now? 28 people on here. I can tell you right now, if somebody calls you and says, hey, well, don't I still, fall underneath the pandemic? Whatever the law was in place, the answer is no. January, I think 13th or 14th, one of those dates, I know in January, the moratorium was completely gone, including for renters. So even renters are trying to give people a hard time who's saying that you can't evict me. The government won't allow you. And that's not true. So I think people are just misguided and there's a lot of misunderstanding and people don't want to take the time to understand what I understand. Now, my company name is Real Estate Recovery Group, which is RRG, which really stands for, nobody ever caught it, Rules, Regulations, and Guidelines. And that's why we're successful the way we are. I live in New Jersey, and I took my services nationwide in 2015 to help other people around the United States. I'm all about adding value. And I actually have a couple of real estate agents that are actually walking around now, believe it or not, with my book. And they're actually highlighting chapters in the book. There's a chapter in this book that actually talks about what sellers should look out for with selling the property and dealing with a real estate agent. Now think about this, and everybody please listen to this because this is going to be some golden nuggets. I only want to see the top of people's heads right now, and they should be writing this down. Every single person that I come in contact with that is a distressed seller, I usually say this one phrase to them. I'm personally not looking to purchase your home, but I have to ask this question. Are you looking for options? Totally different, catches people completely off guard because they're thinking you're going to come at them, Alan, like a shark. They're chum in the ocean. And here comes Alan with his ridiculously nice hair up my walkway. And I'm like, I hate this guy. Is he using Rogaine? What's he using? But at the end of the day, they want to know, is this guy being sincere? So the real estate agents and the investors that I work with, that I coach, I make it very clear. Tell this to the client. It's not about you. Well, actually, it is about them. It's not about me. It's not about the person who wants to buy the house. I need to know, do you want to know your options? Because let's say it's a previously marketed property, something that was on the MLS. Maybe it was a failed listing. Mr. Homeowner, I'm so sorry to see that, you're in the situation that you're in. And I make it so, look, not everybody can afford coaching, right? Not everybody can afford mentoring. Now, I don't have the time to do it for free anymore. This market is really starting to heat up. So I say to people, look, go after the real estate, go after the transactions, see what's available, see what's out there. Worst case scenario, worst case, you're going to get someone that's going to say, no, thank you, I'm not interested, versus a door slammed in your face, a baseball bat, from the other side of the doorway, a Rottweiler, or my favorite, a fire extinguisher, where they spray it to get you off their porch. And all of those have actually happened. Thank God I was on the other side of the fence on the sidewalk in the early days when you see my partners used to go and knock on the door, and I would laugh. So what's important is if you're dealing with somebody that may or may not be on a no call list or whatever, you could just simply say, I had no idea, Mr. Homeowner. I'm not calling to harass you. I'm just going to find out, do you know what your options are? Has somebody actually explained to you foreclosure should never be an option? Because what happens is people are so emotionally invested because they're in trouble that they're not thinking straight. And they need somebody to lean on that they can work with to try to help, right? It makes more sense to basically friend someone versus to go after someone and look at them as a target and try to make money off of them. Now, personally, and I tell people this all the time, you could put me in the hot seat. I'm about an 85% close ratio on the telephone, 85 out of 100, 85% of the time, I turn that person into a positive lead / prospect / client because of how I understand I speak with people. See, I'm talking to everybody right now in this group. This is exactly how I would speak with a homeowner. Right. You can't talk to someone who's in trouble and go, so I want to ask you another question. I'm not making fun of people, but if you don't act like you know what you're talking about, all you're doing is raising their anxiety level and they don't want to talk to you. You've got one shot. It's like speed dating. You're either going to get it right the first time or, the bell's going to ring and you're on to the next person. The real estate market is bananas right now. I mean, I've seen people paying on traditional real estate hundreds of thousands of dollars more than the house is worth. So when people are like, dude, why you keep bothering with short sales? Well, I'll see you in a couple of years. What's going to happen is it's going to do the same thing that it did in 2005. It's not going to be the same exact situation, but it's got a familiar look and smell to what had happened back then. People don't realize there's a servicing company, right? Then there's a bank, then there's a lender, and then there's maybe there's an investor. So there's multiple layers that have to go through. I find it easier that in the event something like that happens, you can always request to speak with the president's office. There's actually a president's office in the bank. And say, look, you guys aren't listening. You're clearly not listening, and you're going to drive this person into foreclosure. The value is not there. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that just show up to get a paycheck. You got to remember, some of these guys and gals that are working the bank, maybe they're making $10, $15 an hour sitting in a cubicle that has no ventilation. They don't have a window. Half the day they're probably falling asleep, and they're reviewing files that they just really don't give a shit. So you keep saying the same thing over and over again. It's like you ask that one person out and they say no. The next day you go back, you say no. If you got hit in a hammer with in your head with a hammer, you probably wouldn't talk to that person ever again. So sometimes you just have to know when to step away or say, hey, is it possible to speak with someone else? Find out if you could close the file, and if you can move on to maybe someone else. Because sometimes you have to close the file, move on to someone else that maybe they'll work with you as far as processing the short sale. I don't really care, to be honest, how many mortgages are on, how many liens are on it. At some point, like, things are going to move. I have a transaction right now where they have a mortgage on it. They have a ghost mortgage on it, which to me makes sense. We're trying to get the title company to omit it, and omitted basically means, can you remove something off of title and get insured so you can move forward? It was the previous owner's mortgage that's showing up on title that obviously is not there because this person's been paying a mortgage and nobody tried to foreclose on it. You know what I mean? So it was already satisfied. Title company's already been out of business, so we're going directly to the underwriter. There's other liens on the property, and when they say liens, there are only about 37 other liens on the property. So, right? Out of the other 37 liens, because it's a generic name, the last name is like Smith. It's like Hernandez. It's like a Lee. It's like Johnson. So the other 37 other liens, there's only really 3 of them that are his. So that stuff doesn't scare me so much. And I know people get upset, they get nervous. It turns out I'm not going to get involved in that because they feel like it's going to be a nightmare. But for me, like, we run title when we get involved. Most people don't run title. And to me, that just blows my mind that people would not want to, get title. And maybe tonight you guys will walk away from this and say, he's right. When you go to build a house, or as Anita says, the Papa Top chick, whatever she is, when they're popping a top, is she just going to rip the roof off and go, yo, put that 2x4 over there, put that 2x6 here, let's draw a stringer across? Or do they go off of architecture plans? That's what the title report is. Because if you don't have title and you know what the hell you're dealing with, you're literally flying blind. Make sense? So when you say to me, how many will it take? I don't know. Let's get down and dirty and let's see what title can, reveal for us so we have an understanding and a clear roadmap. So that doesn't make a difference to me. Guys, by the way, I know my information is going to be up later on, but my website, I literally put everything into one place. It's my name. It's MatthewMerenoff.com. And if you want to talk with me, there's an exchange button on my digital card. You can actually fill it out and just say, like, where do we meet? You can say JJ's group. And then, I'll reach out to you the next day to if somebody has questions, or if things pop up after tonight and you have questions, you need help or whatever. So people was like, why the hell does the short sale take so long? Well, it's a couple of different things. One is the homeowner providing the documentation that you need in a timely manner. Not like today, I just got word after 4.5 months, the owner said, hey, I've got my documentation. And I was like, oh, wow. I had no idea you were still alive. I thought you were, or you moved on, moved out of the country or whatever. So it's really, the seller has to be cooperative. They have to give us a documentation. The buyers have to be cooperative. They have to give us updated information. The title company has to do their job. The attorneys, for the most part, need to fall in line and do what's needed so we can get on to the next stage. So how long should a short sale really take? Depending if you get somebody who's aggressive at the bank and knows what they're doing and doesn't want to be, a deal killer, um, a short sale should really take between 2 to 3 months. My company is specifically set up as a third-party negotiation company. I work for the seller and the buyer. Get the seller out of the situation that they're in and get the buyer to purchase the property for the best possible price. So there's no ABC or any of that other stuff. This is me working the transaction, and I get paid a fee for services by the buyer on the HUD, fully disclosed. Disclosure paperwork goes up on the MLS, and there's verbiage in there as well. Two houses actually went to sheriff's sale. They went to auction, and the properties were paid off in full. And there was money that was left over for the homeowners. So it's called what it's called is a surplus. And that money is obviously, should be given back to the homeowner. Does it always make it back to the homeowner? No, it does not. But you also raised another good question was, if they get a letter and the letter goes to the home and they're not there because they abandoned the property, right? Which is funny because people are like, well, they're not going to find me. They're not going to get me. You got a job, W-2 job? Yeah, they're going to find you. I mean, that's just a dumb statement to say. Like, they didn't work with me, so I screwed them. I left. No, you screwed yourself by leaving. Because what if this house does sell? And what if there is a surplus? Or what if you lived in the property? Now you're paying rent somewhere else. But what if you lived in the property? What if you were entitled to $2,500, $3,000, $10,000 moving expense money? And the 8 months that you left thinking you're doing the right thing by leaving and not telling the bank, and all of a sudden now your pipes burst in your house over the winter, and then they come back and there's like a mold fest in the house. Like, it's upsetting. And yes, they do have property management companies, preservation companies come to the houses and check it out. At sidebar, quick story. I got a phone call from somebody who's, listen, I got a property I need you to take a look at. I really don't know what to do with it. The mortgage company said that the preservation company's been coming and taking a look at the property for the last 9 months and basically charging them. Can you meet me at the property? No problem. So I drive over there and I see this person standing in front of an empty lot. What the fuck's going on here? So I pull over. I go, you so-and-so? He goes, yeah. I go, I thought we were meeting at the house. He goes, yeah, the house is right behind me. I go, dude, it's an empty lot. He goes, I know. The bank still thinks the house is here. I go, what? He says, yeah, the preservation company keeps charging them every single month saying they're coming to check the house. I go, dude, are you playing with me? Like, I'm looking around, are you guys punking me? Like, am I on my son's TV show? And the town had used the house because it was an abandoned property. They got hold of the seller of the property, and he says, "Yeah, I don't care what you do with that." It's like, "Oh, we could use it for training for our firemen." Said, yeah, they ruined the guy's house, took it to the ground. The bank still thought the house was there. So what I say is everything is possible when it comes to the banks, the real estate. What's involved, what's not involved. I mean, I've literally heard it all as far as the stories. As far as what Sam is asking me, is the homeowner entitled to surplus money? Yes. Do they always collect it? No, they do not. In some cases, they don't even know that, the money was there for them. So there's a lot of things that, that are available. Like if a house goes to sale for auction, and this is important. So if you're falling asleep, wake up. If somebody has a house and the house goes for sale for $500,000 and nobody's there to bid the house up, and all they want is $500,000, and the house is worth $1 million, and they pay what the bank wants, they could just take the property and that's the end of it. And the surplus is even talked about or spoken about or whatever. And the guy could say, hey, look, your house went to sale. I purchased it at sale. I'm going to give you $50,000. Will you take 50? Holy shit. Yeah, I'll take $50,000. They waived their right to the surplus. So there's a lot of scams that are out there. Just keep that in the back of your head. Don't be a scam artist. And incidentally, because I know someone's going to ask this question, is there still a bill in place for people that own personal residencies for the deficiency amount? And the answer is yes. And it got extended to 2025. This bill was put in place in 2007. 2007. And they're extending it to 2025. Blew my mind when I heard that today. So there's a lot of people that are still in trouble. The pandemic ended. People didn't realize that the free ride was over, the tenants, the homeowners, the whole boat. And now people are starting to have a realization like, oh shit, I could get foreclosed on. The answer is yes, you can get foreclosed on. But that's why it's important to show people and tell people they have options. My book, 100% will give people the foundation and the footing to understand. Do you want to get involved in short sales? Do you want to understand what goes into short sales? 1,000,000,000%. People jump in, they want to get coached, they want to get trained. There are other different things. I'm like, dude, go buy my book. It's $19.97 on Amazon for a cost of a meal at Chipotle. By the way, I do accept Chipotle gift cards. At Chipotle, you basically, you're going to find out in 164 pages, is this something that I want to go after? It's not rocket science. I feel like people are trained, Devin, in my opinion. They go to these meetups, they go to these groups, they go to these, okay, you come in, it's $99 for the event. Then they upsell it to another event. From that event, they have you take a second mortgage on your house. I'm not saying that's wrong. Hey, mazel tov. I'm just saying that's not how I operate. For $20, if you can't figure out from my book whether it's something that you want to get involved in or not, that's up to you. Like right now, there's 27 people on here. I guarantee you only 3 people will buy a book. Because there's people out there that they think they either have all the knowledge, they have all the information, they don't want to learn because they're like, oh, here's the guy, he's pushing his book. He's another author. He thinks he's awesome. I don't think I'm anything. Because at the end of the day, most people have not gone through what I went through to get to where I am. Chapter 1, legit. I poured my heart out in chapter 1 of my book, and it talks about who I was, where I came from, and how I got to be the short sale savage. That name was given to me, and I took it. I used to go by the Hebrew Hammer, but I go short sale savage because honestly, people king of short sales, and queen or whatever it is. I'm a savage when it comes to short sales, and here's why I'm successful. You ready? I hope if you're a church goer, you might want to close your ears for this to turn the volume down. At the end of the day, I don't give a fuck. It's not about the bank. It's not about us. That person's in trouble. You help that person, you will have a massive fucking gold mine because people are going to look to you as the go-to person. I have agents that I work with, and they're like, well, how do I know you're not going to go around me? Now that my broker knows about you and he's going to call you and, he's not going to give that lead to me. I'm like, dude, that's between you and your broker. But what I will say is I will tag in my system that, this is a, John West file or whatever it is. Like there's only so much I can do. Like when you go to Burger King, there's multiple locations. Doesn't mean I'm going to show up in closer and Bergenfield has a different location. You're going to get mad at me because I stopped in at Bergenfield and got a Whopper there and I didn't go to Closter? No, it's the same concept. I can't stop people. And what I don't like is there's so many selfish people in this industry and all they do is think about themselves. They don't think about sharing the knowledge and giving the knowledge to other people that are in trouble. But I will tell you, even myself, like I'm going to use my book as a calling card when I go knocking on doors. That's something that my wife laughs. She's like, dude, She's like, you haven't knocked on doors in over 10 years. You're going to go knock on a door? I'm like, yeah, it'll be fun. I'm on the phone now with the banks because I look at things differently than most people. And I'm not ashamed to say it. 3 people were let go from my company because they weren't doing their job. They weren't asking the questions. And when I come in and audit, and you tell me that you made a phone call on a phone call, and I know that you're working for my team, and my calls are tracked. So you're going to tell me, how many calls did you make every day? Oh, I made 5, 25. I made about 55 calls last week. Really? I see 3. So now I know you lied to me. So do I ask you for the money back? You know what I mean? So people say, is Matt really as mean as he really seems to be, or is he a nice guy? I'm the nicest guy. We could work together as a team, and I really want to do so, but you got to put your best foot forward. Now, I'm not saying 3 people are going to buy my book just so more people buy it. I'm telling you, usually it's about 30% of when I speak now on these calls, 30% of the people actually go and buy the book. So, and I'm not really good at math, believe it or not. So maybe it'll be more than just 3 people. But at the end of the day, I promise you, the information in my book was put there for a reason. So I don't have to talk like this anymore. That book specifically mimics who I am. And if you read it and now you know how my voice sounds, you're going to understand, oh, shit, this guy really did write the book. Because I had to dismiss 3 people that were editing my book. I said, you're taking out my verbiage. I just need you to correct my words. It doesn't make sense. I don't give a fuck if it doesn't make sense. That's how I talk. That's how I want people to understand and perceive who I am. Grammar is not obviously my best suit, which is fine. Some people say, should always be professional, always wear a tie, have a suit on when you talk in front of other people. That's not just the case. Guys, think about this. You're in trouble with the property. Person needs to sell their house, but they have liens and judgments against it. It might make sense for them, instead of fighting everything, to have everything stripped off the house. Because when you file a certain bankruptcy, when they file bankruptcy, that bankruptcy attorney better do their full job. How many people have actually done or been involved in a distressed real estate sale, and the attorney filed bankruptcy, but he didn't strip any of the liens off the house? A lot. And I can tell you right now, 7, it might even be 8, 7 or 8 out of 10 filings of bankruptcies in the state of New Jersey, that's 70 to 80% of the filings in the state of New Jersey for bankruptcy are filed incorrectly. That's scary. I'm going to give everybody who's on here right now, I'm going to give them a little bit of advice. 2 people dropped off, by the way, and those 2 people are going to be very sorry right now. There is such a thing called a release of lien. You can ask somebody who has a lien on a property if they will do a release of lien against the property. You can still go after the individual, but I'm dealing with a distressed property. Can we do a release of lien? Now, if they're smart and that person hasn't paid that judgment in, let's say, 9 years, and depending on the state and the statute and everything like that, all they have to do is get like even a $50 payment, and it brings it right back to being reoccurring again, right? So if you, and this is something you need to research, doing a release of lien, is it beneficial for somebody, or does it make more sense to say, guys, you're kind of foobarred here. You're owed $14,000. You're not going to get 14 grand. So because of that, I'm in a position where I can offer $2,500 to settle the judgment. Are you willing to take it? They might say we want 5 grand. Okay, cool. What I do is a lot different than most people. I'm negotiating with everybody, meaning like a deal that I have right now, they owe about $46,000 to the state of New Jersey. This happens to be in New Jersey. And they also have 2 other liens that are roughly about $10,000. It's almost 60 grand in judgments, right? So Charles Ramsey asked me before, will you take on a file that has more than one lien on it or a mortgage? The answer is yes. Because what I've done is I've actually gone to the buyer's attorney and said, look, the bank is only going to allow X, Y, and Z on the HUD. They're only allowing a certain percentage of what they're going to get to give to these lien holders. It's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work something out with the seller of the property and find out if they have money to put towards dispersing of the liens. If it doesn't work, will the buyer provide additional funds to help with the release of the lien, hopefully settling it? Now, if he's a smart attorney, he'll say, yeah, I see what you're saying. It would make sense. I'll definitely talk to my client about it. But you do get a lot of attorneys that get upset and say, well, it's not going to go on the buyer's side. Well, guess what? It's not going to go on the seller's side. So guess who's not buying the house? So do you want to call your client right now? Do you want me to call your client? And sometimes I have to do a three-way conversation between the buyer and the buyer's attorney with myself to explain the seller side will not allow money, and they also will not allow any type of contribution from the real estate agents to go towards the lien. So there's a lot of things that come into play, and people always keep saying to me, oh, short sales are easy. They're really not. You might get lucky and get a short sale here and there, and it's not that hard. But when you come into some of the stuff that I come into, they're train wrecks. Nobody ever wants to give me a softball like an easy short sale. So liens have to be addressed, and there's a way to do it in a way to do it. And again, you guys know, if you've noticed the way I'm speaking tonight, I'm a little tired, but the way I'm speaking, you don't hear let me check, I don't know. I've been doing this for 17 years. There is nothing that you could say to me that would throw me off except, can you go on a date with me? No, you cannot. I am married for 20 some odd years. The answer is no. And I'm not saying it because I know my wife is on the other side of the door listening. And I'm going to give you guys another golden nugget. You don't ever really know, or you should find out, would or does the bank qualify for what's called a waterfall review, meaning that they'll actually take the property and offer that person a modification on their house without any type of financials. And yes, they actually do that with properties that are abandoned and busted pipes in the house. And it's not habitable at all. And I actually had that conversation. I wish to God it was recorded with the bank. Like, you guys are going to do a waterfall review on a property. The house isn't you can't live in the property. It's probably condemned at this point. Oh, that's an investor guideline. So usually what I say in a situation like that, I wouldn't advise you saying it because I don't know if you could get away with it, but I say it. Maybe the investor wants to meet me at the house and cut a piece of sheetrock, roll it, and smoke it. Let's walk the house together. Because doing a waterfall review on a property in a situation like that makes absolutely no sense. That was a joke, by the way.
Yeah, thank you so much. For everybody watching this video on YouTube, please like Matt's video presentation. Please put comments in the comment section below here on YouTube. Support Matt, support the YouTube channel, Flip Side Up with JJ. Everybody else, look for some more recordings coming up in the future. We got something every week. Everybody, thanks for being on, and we'll see everybody soon.